Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. Today I'm going to do a tactics video. I haven't done a tactics video in a while. I started them when I originally started my channel, and what they are videos where I go over basically how to understand the mindset of an SJW and how to deal with them. Because dealing with these people, and really it's so easy to crush these people. It's pathetically easy. They're like 2-year-olds. It's like picking on a 2-year-old, because that's really the mentality that most of these people, these SJWs, are in, because they're stuck as a 2-year-old for all their life. It's always me, me, me. I'm always right. And it's so easy to destroy these people. And the reason why I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about it for a while, because I was thinking about doing this video before, and I thought, I really shouldn't, just because I don't want people to do this to SJWs. Really, they're going to kill themselves they're slitting their own throats in the industry. But at the same time, Diversity in Comics had directed me towards, Richard Meyer directed me towards a video, everybody actually, towards a video that I watched and I kind of liked, and I'll put the link in the description for that. But it's of a topic that I usually go on about in a smaller way. It's that SJWs use emotion and nothing but emotion, and we on this side hopefully tend to use logic, and logic will destroy their emotion every time. And he also talked about Saul Alinsky and how they use Saul Alinsky tactics and all this, which is stuff that I go over to some extent in my videos as well. But he talked about some of the logical fallacies that they actually use as part of their everyday mentality, these SJWs. And this would obviously include the SJWs that have infested Marvel and the comic book industry. And he is actually directly talking about those people and how they are going nuts right now to attack comics gators and call them haters. And if you actually applied the same standards to them, they would look worse than the picture that they're painting for us. But of course, you have to have different standards for different people when you're an SJW. You can't actually apply your own standards to yourself. That would not work. But he's going over this, and one of the ones that I actually made a comment on his video was about guilt by association. Is a logical fallacy. Guilt by association is a logical fallacy where you say that if someone says that if you associate with another person who does something wrong, then you have also done that wrong. And of course, guilt by association being a logical fallacy, it falls apart completely under any kind of argumentation. It falls apart completely under reason and logic. But SJWs use this all the time. And in my comment, which I'll go over briefly now, it's the fact that any movement that uses guilt by association and will not give it up is doomed to fail. Because, of course, if you use guilt by association, well, then you have to disassociate yourself with as many people as possible, because you, of course, don't want to be guilty by association. And when you tighten up your circle of people that you quote unquote trust, because I really don't think SJWs trust each other very much, but we'll say quote unquote trust. If you tighten up that circle, you of course, you silo yourself. That's the way that usually it is expressed. You silo yourself. You put yourself in an echo chamber. And so you just hear your own thoughts back to you all the time. And when you get into that position, the normal people, your normal guy in the street, your John Doe out there, he's going to look at you. If you ever come in contact with him, he's going to look at the SJW and go, yeah, you're kind of weird, buddy. I really don't think that what you're saying is anyway correct. And at the same time, it will rob the SJW of any ability to see why this John Doe person on the street is looking at them that way, because of course they're stuck in their echo chamber. So because they can't, the SJW cannot see why this person is thinking that they're wrong and to some extent crazy, then they perceive this as an attack. And when they perceive it as an attack, what do? They circle their wagons and they tighten up their circle even more about who they associate with. And of course, that just brings it back to the beginning. And this whole thing just is a vicious circle that goes around and around and around until the SJW is left crazy and alone in their own little bubble and lashing out at every last person that comes in contact with them, because they just see everyone as attacking them, because they can only hear their own thoughts and not a perspective from anywhere else let alone the truth. And so they are insane to some extent. They are crazy. They become crazy people. All right. And, that's why SJWism and any movement that uses guilt by association is just doomed to fail. And it makes me think SJWs, it brings to mind, thinking about them in this way, brings to mind a story from my history class, one of my history classes long ago. I took Russian history, a lot of different European histories. Anyways, so this is me working off of memory, so it may not be exactly the correct story for all its details, but the story was about Stalin and when he died, which I think is very appropriate because I'm always saying that SJWs are the useful idiots of socialists and communists. So Stalin, when he was getting very old, his health was starting to fail. So he went on a vacation in order to try to improve his health. And he went on a vacation to one of his mansions in the mountains because, of course, that's what communism actually does. It just moves the power from one section to another so that the new dictator can have his mansions in the mountains, right? So he went to his mansion in the mountain, and he was, of course, surrounded by his security and all of his servants, because, of course, he had servants, even though he was a communist, and all of the civil servants, and they all went around him in this big mansion. And so he was trying to recuperate, and he was in his bedroom, this big bedroom of his, that, had hardwood floors and was just all decked out. And during a part of the day, he had a stroke and he collapsed onto his floor. Now, he was in his bedroom by himself when he collapsed on his floor. And Stalin was not a small man, so when he collapsed, he made a big old thud. And everybody outside knew that he had collapsed. And then for the next few hours to a day, I'm not entirely sure about how long it took, but certainly a few hours, Stalin was there on the floor calling for help. And no one, even though they're all outside the door, no one would open the door and go in and help him. No one. So he eventually died there on the floor, weak and calling for help from anybody, sad and alone and deserted by everyone. And the reason why, even though everybody was outside the door, all they were doing was waiting for him to die. Partly because, and I say for a great part, because nobody wanted to go in and help him, because they knew that if they saw him in this weakened state and they helped him and he actually survived for any time at all, he would have them killed. Because they saw him in this weakened state, because he's Stalin. He's supposed to be the man of steel. He's supposed to be this great leader figure. No one can see him as weak, but it's guilt by association with that event. They would be guilty by association with that event and they would be killed. So no one went in to help him. All they did was wait. And I don't know if I remember correctly, it was more than a day that he lay there on the floor, or at the very least, they don't know exactly when he died, but they left him there for more than a day to make sure that he was dead before they opened the door. And of course, they opened the door and all started wailing and screaming and saying, "Oh, our great leader is dead. How did this happen?" Of course, because they didn't want to go in and help him, because, guilt by association. They didn't want to be associated with this event because they knew they'd be killed by it. And this is just so telling. This is a very good analogy for SJWs. This is how they're going to end up. This is how they're going to die. This is how their movement is going to die. And looking at what is going on in comics right now, say on social media, for all of these comic pros attacking comics gators and calling them comics haters and trying to make them appear like they're, racists and bigots and neo-Nazis and everything else. They're trying to make everyone in the outside world that doesn't know about comicsgate specifically look at comicsgaters that way. And they're doing it in a high-handed manner, as if they have the moral authority, as if they have any kind of authority at all, when in fact these people are in such a precarious position. These SJW comic pros are in such a precarious position that you and I could destroy their entire livelihood within, I would say, a month or two. Easily destroy them in a very simple way. All it would take was a couple of comicsgaters, say about a dozen or more, to get together and to start, let's say on Twitter, including a specific comic pro in their Twitter feed every time they posted something about comicsgate. They would tag them in it. And if this comics pro came to them and was very nasty to them, saying, stop doing this, just be very nice back. All you got to do is be, these dozen or more people would just be very nice back to him. And if someone else in the SJW crowd would start attacking them on this, then they would defend this comics pro. Have comic skaters defend this comics pro as if he was the best guy in the world. And of course, the SJWs would see this as guilt by association. They would take this comic pro and they would say, hey, these people are associating with you. They think they're your friend. Obviously, since we don't really trust anybody, we don't trust you. You're guilty by association. We are going to destroy you. And they would be driven out of the industry and their livelihoods would be gone. It's really simple. You would actually just have to be nice to these people in order to destroy their entire livelihood. And they're acting high-handedly like we are the ones that are under their moral authority and that they have some kind of power over us. They have zero power. We could destroy them so easily. But I really don't think that that's a good idea to do that because, well, I don't think that's a moral thing to do to somebody because, well, they're going to destroy themselves anyway as well. But as I had talked about in my other video about Marvel and their job postings, really what we need to do is, and it's funny, I come up with this phrase because it was in X-Men Red a couple of months ago where Jean Grey said, we're going to weaponize the truth, which I found to be extremely funny because she was going around basically mind-wiping people and changing their minds and changing their thoughts in their own heads. And she was talking about weaponizing the truth, which is so hilarious. But all we have to do is tell the truth. And I think we need to direct that truth in a more specific, enhanced way towards certain groups and towards certain people. All these people who they're looking for now to hire at Marvel, they're talking a lot about analytics and how they want to analyze current trends in order to better sell their product. We just need to show the truth that analytics show we need to get this information to these specific people who study analytics at Disney or the higher ups that are connecting Disney with Marvel, that you know what? If you actually look at these analytics, these people are poisonous and are destroying much of what you have tried to build and are getting rid of stacks of money. They're just flushing it down the toilet on your behalf. And really, that's all we need to do. We need to make sure the truth gets out there. We need to make sure that we keep on showing that this is what the truth is. That no, comic skaters are not haters. We are just looking for a healthy industry. And that, yes, all of these numbers, if you crunch them, I think it's Eglantine that does most of the number crunching. And he actually does a really good job at it. He goes to Comic-Con and does a lot of this stuff. But to look at these numbers and to actually take the analytics and to show it to the right people. Show it to the right people, and these SJWs are doomed. Now, I don't think that's going to save Marvel. I don't think that's going to save DC. I think that, again, as I had to put it in the title of one of my other videos, I think that Disney is the one who has killed Marvel. SJWs are just the vultures over the body of it. But at the very least, to get rid of the SJWs, we might, at the very least, get a semi-good product out of Marvel, which might help the comic industry survive in a state long enough so that better creators like Richard Meyer, like Ethan Van Sciver, like John Malin, like the Brightwisers, like Kelsey Shannon, all of these people out there trying to produce good comics can actually start up their own industry parallel to what the giant companies are right now and keep good comics going and have that extra time just to make sure that comics become a great medium again. All right, I'll leave it there. And if I gave you anything new to think about, hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment, give me something new to think about, and I will see you later. Bye.